Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Babylon 9's video. Julen Lopetegui is under massive pressure at West Ham, and this has just come out, obviously, from Machine Sports of The Athletic, saying a failure to produce a convincing performance at home against Everton on Saturday could be the last straw for Julen Lopetegui's career at West Ham. So, I mean, it doesn't look good for him. We've discussed it quite overtly, both here and on the Hammers Chat Patreon, so make sure you go check that out as well. But this is all about why it's got to this point, and is Julen Lopetegui actually under critical pressure, like reports are now suggesting? And we're going to look at what's happened so far, the data behind it, because it hasn't been good. Obviously, if you've been watching our babbling review shows each week of the performances that we've been putting in, it hasn't been good either. And we've got some statistics that we want to run through that kind of paint the picture for Julen Lopetegui and why it isn't working so far during his West Ham career, even though he spent a lot of money in the summer, has restructured this squad pretty much how he likes. I think there's a couple of positions he probably would have liked different players in, but by and large, he's had some really big investment from the club. And he's been working with Tim Steidten closely on the transfers. So let's look at a summary of West Ham's season so far in terms of the data, because it hasn't been good. So let's take it from the top. We have the third worst defensive record in the Premier League, with 19 goals conceded. So that should be the first kind of indication that things aren't going right for West Ham right now. Having the third worst defensive record in the league is not something to be proud of, and it's not something that we should be surprised at, to be honest. With the way we've been defending, the way we've been conceding goals, it hasn't been good enough. And yeah, only Wolves and Ipswich have worse defensive records so far in the Premier League. So that is definitely an indication in itself that we are not performing where we should be as a football club, especially with the talent that we have at our disposal. And it's not like we've conceded loads of goals that we shouldn't have. Therefore, things will pan out differently as the season progresses. If we look at the second statistic on your list here, we have the fifth worst expected defensive record in the Premier League so far, with 20.49 expected goals against. So even though we've actually conceded less than statistically we should have, we still statistically have the fifth worst defensive record in the Premier League based on expected goals against. So it's not looking good. It's not looking good for Julen Lopetegui. And again, the pressure is becoming a little bit insurmountable right now at West Ham. And we now need to figure out a solution to that, whether that's going to be to continue to back him and try and get through these next, 5-6 games, which are going to be very crucial to our season, or we make the decision. We make this decision because obviously we've got Everton at the weekend. Then we've got that international break before we go to St. James's Park, and then we've got Arsenal at home. So the fixtures don't get easier, but we do have quite a nice run in December that we should be looking to pick up a lot of points in. Whether we'll act before that, time will tell. But let's look at the next statistic down on our bullet point list. So going the other way, we're 13th for expected goals scored in the Premier League this season with 15.98 XG. So statistically, going forwards, we've been subpar. We've been below average in terms of the expected data. As we saw there, ranking 13th for expected goals scored across the entire Premier League. So again, are we sacrificing our defensive output for being this free-flowing, attacking, footballing side? Absolutely not. We're below par in that category as well. And, the goals have dried up and we haven't been able to create as many opportunities as we'd probably like. We haven't been able to dominate or control games as much as we'd hoped under someone like Julen Lopetegui. Again, we alluded to it in the summer. We didn't believe he was the right pick for West Ham. There were too many flaws, too many inconsistencies in his previous managerial stints across Sevilla, Madrid, Spain, Porto, even Wolves. So it was a gamble. Well, not, it was actually the opposite of a gamble from the board. It was a free option that, fitted the mold of someone who's got this pedigree, who's got this experience in the Premier League across Europe, that could come in and make a difference at West Ham. Is he making a difference in the right way? No, he's actually making a negative impact on the squad right now, and we're minimizing the effect of our players that we have. I spoke about it in a video about Kudus yesterday and how he's been playing him out on the left-hand side. We saw Paqueta playing right wing against Forest, which just doesn't work and never was going to work. We've seen so many players shift around, so many different systems and formations. We've played a back three. We've played a 4-1-4-1. We've played a 4-3-3. We've played a 3-4-3. Like, we've played so many different variations that we just haven't seen that consistency on the pitch. And the results kind of reflect that, and the statistics reflect that. So the next one down we had was again, alluding to the fact that we haven't been the best in terms of our attacking output. So we're averaging 1.3 goals per game right now, which isn't like horrifically bad with an XG of 1.44. But when you're comparing it to most of the opposition, again, it comes into that subpar category, like 12th or 13th in the league in terms of those data statistics. So we haven't been good. We just haven't been good across the board, whether you're looking at it from an offensive perspective, a defensive perspective. We have to improve across the entire starting 11. And that stems from the manager. That stems from the structure in place. That stems from the tactics you're deploying. And that steps from your team selection on a Saturday or a Sunday or a midweek, whenever the match is. And Lopetegui often hasn't got that right. And he hasn't been able to find that blend within his squad to maximize the benefits that we could have. Only recently we've seen the likes of Todibo, Somerville coming into the squad. Again, players take time to adjust. I'm not against that method, but it doesn't seem like he's getting much consistency. Again, a lot of reactive substitutions at halftime. I think we've probably made like the most halftime substitutions out of any Premier League side this season because we've had to be reactive. We've had to respond to things not going right. Think back to Fulham away, Brentford away, Forest away. When we played at home to Man United, it's always been a reactive or a response. It's never been a proactive move, or it's never forced the opposition to do something like that against us, really. I think the only game we've convincingly won this season has been against Ipswich at home. The other win against, Crystal Palace away wasn't convincing. Man United at home wasn't convincing. We managed to get 2 draws at Fulham and Brentford, but again, not convincing, and probably didn't deserve to get a point from either of those games, if we're being completely honest. So it hasn't been like we've been performing well, and the results just haven't been driving behind it. The performances, the underlying data, the day-to-day, what you're seeing is really poor, and it's a reflection in the table. I think it's that where we are currently in the league table is a good indication and reflection of how we've progressed as a football club this season and what we're currently doing, and it's not been good enough. And as we continue to look at the statistics down here, we're averaging 1.9 goals conceded per game. And as I mentioned, that's the third worst in the Premier League, which is crazy, with an expected goals against of 1.81. So as I mentioned there, it's not like we've been conceding goals when we shouldn't have. We've been conceding goals because we should have. We have not been good enough defensively. And again, we've seen so many turnovers and structural issues and gaps in our defensive structure when we lose the ball, when we're trying to press, no cohesion across as a unit. There have been so many issues that are stemming this from Julen Lopetegui's style of play and what he's trying to implement. And now he's running out of time. And that's why reports like Roshane from The Athletic are kind of showcasing now that Lopetegui is on borrowed time. And, if we go back to the tweet here saying that he needs to produce a convincing performance at home against Everton. So, look, I don't believe that we could win the match and him get sacked. No way. If the performance wasn't convincing, our board would not operate like that and haven't done over the past decade or so. I don't think that the board will act, even if we lose, personally. But time will tell. I don't think any West Ham fan would be against that. If we lose to Everton on Saturday, we've then got that international break to try and recruit a new manager. Do I think we have people lined up or trying to get people in the pipeline right now in the background? Probably so. Yes, that probably is happening right now. Do I think it's going to be? Do I think the Lopetegui project is sustainable? Absolutely not. I said I would reserve my judgment until 15 games. It's been, if we're including pre-season, it's way over 15 games, but we're just approaching 15 games in all competitions under Julen Lopetegui at West Ham, and we're declining. We're regressing as a football club. We're not seeing that improvement. We're not seeing that gradual progression. I don't think any West Ham fan would have been against maybe losing a game 2-1 or picking up a point where we should have won if the performances were there. How it's just not been like that. We've been actually underperforming. We've been regressing, as I mentioned. We've been deservedly being, beaten matches. And that's stemming in our performances and results and ultimately our league position so far this season. And, the bottom part there, we're averaging 45% possession in the Premier League so far. Look, again, there's nuances to this. We've played some difficult games already. However, this was meant to be a manager that liked to control games, like to dictate the tempo of a match, have his team structured in a way that if we lose the ball, we're high up the pitch and we can regain it in the final third, and we have that defensive structure behind it. When we're doing it at the moment, when we lose the ball in the final third, when we're trying to create something, it's like it's been instilled as a mentality thing to, right, go and press, regardless of who's closest to him. Go and press man for man. It doesn't matter what's behind you. Just go in and trust your players to do it. And it's just leaving so many gaps because we're not doing it in an organized and a systemized way. And now we're getting these results, and now we're getting punished for these. And we should have been punished more if we're being completely honest. You know, Man United is the perfect example of that. Should have conceded 7 goals in the first half minimum, which is insane. And that's what prompted the 3 substitutions at half time from Lopetegui. But it just hasn't been good enough, and it just hasn't. We don't have that belief as a West Ham fan. I certainly don't have the belief as a West Ham fan that this is the right way forwards. This is a clear indication of the direction West Ham is progressing, and there's a clear path to success. I don't think, I mean, let me know down and below in the comments what your thoughts are, but I don't believe it. I don't see it. I don't envision it. There just isn't enough substance behind what we're doing at the moment to warrant that kind of reaction from the fan base. So time will tell. Everton this weekend's a massive game. It's a huge game for Julen Lopetegui and these West Ham players. He's going to be without Alvarez, Kudus, maybe even Paqueta. I think he might have picked up his 5th bookable offence away at Forest. So he's going to be without some key figures in that squad. But we've got to perform against a very poor Everton team as well. You know, they've been pretty much just as bad as us this season. As again, we'll do that in our Everton preview later this week. But it just hasn't been good enough from West Ham, and it just hasn't been good enough from Julen Lopetegui. So, yeah, let me know down below in the comments. Do you think a loss or failing to convincingly beat Everton on Saturday will stem a reaction from the board and will stem the sacking of Julen Lopetegui? Let me know down below what your thoughts are. Are you happy with how things are going at the moment? How do things improve? Can Lopetegui turn it around? All of that stuff. Let me know down below in the comments because I like reading your opinions and getting your takes on things. And yeah, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel for more content. And until the next one, come on, you Irons.